Hi, I'm Kimberly Cassidy,
And I'm Matt Van Vliet.
and today we're going to talk about reporting and why less is more. And so, when we ask why is less more, the first question is why isn't more more? So, Matt, why isn't more reporting better? Isn't it better if you have lots of reports?
First of all, let's understand why do we need reports, right? And most often we want this information in order to make a decision. So instead of measuring how much, how many reports I have, what I need to measure is how fast can I make decisions, right? So if I have, let's talk about why more isn't more. If I have more reports, let's say I have 150 reports to look through in order to try to find the right one to help me make my decision, then that's going to take time, and different people across my organization may be better at finding the right report than others. If I have mountains of data on my reports, that some of which is needed to make my decision and some of which isn't, um, then now I have to decide which data is relevant on which report in order to make my decision. And ultimately, I'm trying to talk about the speed at which I can make a decision. I need to decide, do I hire these two people? I need to decide how much do I invest in sales and marketing. I need to decide something. And having 150 reports, does that help me decide? Having the ability to build custom reports on top of that and slice the data in 72 different ways, is it actually helping me make a decision? So ultimately, right, we don't want a mountain of reports. We want the right reports. We don't want a mountain of data. We want the right data. But in the end, what we want as much as possible is insights instead of data.
So, if we think about, we don't want 134 reports, and our focus is generally professional services organizations because that's the space that we exist in. If I have a mountain of data, and I actually think it's okay to have a mountain of data as long as I'm not wading through the mountain of data and I'm not spending all of my team's time collecting the data, organizing the data, analyzing the data. That's a lot, right? So if we have a mountain of data, that's great if it's all the data we need. But what do we think? What idea of getting things from that mountain of data to something that you can use to actually make an informed decision? Is that the funnel that you're talking about where that less is more, right? It's not about less data, but it's about having the right data in front of you that tells a story that helps you make informed decisions. Is that correct, Matt?
For sure. So actually, in the system we've built, it remembers everything that ever happened. So it knows which projects were added, when they were booked, when they were imminent, which projects were lost, what positions were added at what time, who billed what time. So it's got enormous amounts of data. The thing is if you just spew that data onto the screen or into a report, then you're not providing the value people need, right? And it's not just about each person having to go compile that data and turn it into an insight. It's now you have to teach everyone in your organization how to build that insight, how to understand what the data is telling you. What we've tried to do is build that knowledge into the system. If I'm looking at this week's projection versus 2 weeks ago, the projection 2 weeks ago, I would like it just to tell me you won these 3 projects, you lost these 2 projects, these positions got pushed out, these people billed more hours than you expected. And right now I know exactly what changed in 3 or 4 sentences of information, not piles and piles of data. And I can then say, now what do I need to do about that? Your new in and at the very top of the report, I wanted to say your revenue for the next 3 months has increased by 150,000 or has decreased by this amount. So I know, all right, here's the net effect of everything. Here's exactly what changed at a summary level, and then I can make a decision based on that.
So then you know that everyone in your organization is also looking at the same thing the same way, right? That everyone's getting the same story from that mountain of data and not looking at the data from 12 different ways and having 12 different takeaways that aren't necessarily accurate or meaningful in the decisions that you're trying to make to run your company.
Right. And we talk a lot about the decisions and the speed of being able to make a decision and all the importance of all of this data being correlated. But in the end, as a services business, you have a set of people, you have a set of projects. There's only so many decisions to be made, right? Why would you need 140 reports, 150 reports in order to decide, should I hire someone? Do I think I'm going to win these deals? Should I spend more on sales? Should I should I invest in building my people and conferences right now? Like, there's only so many decisions I have to make. And so therefore, if I get the right data in front of me to make those decisions, supported by all the detailed data that's under the covers, that's going to make the speed of making a decision as fast as possible.
It also lets you spend more of your time you're making decisions. You're also taking action, right? So you're not using reports to just make decisions. You're also using those reports to take action. So for example, you talked about, hey, my revenue is down $300,000. In my projections, what I thought 2 weeks ago was going to happen and what's going to happen now, I have a $300,000 gap. I can spend a whole lot of time digging through a mountain of data to figure out what happened. And instead, I'm able to look at, here's what happened. Here's the story of what happened. And now I can spend my time and energy on what am I going to do about it? What am I going to do to fix it? And, having worked with you for many years now, I know that's always like the first question was always, all right, what happened? And the second question is, what are you going to do about it? Right. And if I spend a lot of human time, right, mine or someone else's trying to figure out what happened, that's less time that I'm spending actually taking an action that does something productive and helps move the business forward.
Right. And, so if you've got a group of people that need to make a decision and they're in the room and you're ready to make the decision and you say, well, what happened? And either someone comes to you and says, I don't know what happened, or there's three opinions on what happened. And they all might be part of the truth because they weighted through the data differently. In the end, you're spending your time now analyzing what happened versus, all right, what are we going to do about it? And the more time we have to think of options of what to do about it or to actually execute those options, the better. So ultimately what we want is a system that lets us look at all of those options and quickly analyze what happened. And we don't need more reports, more data, or what have you. It's actually, if you have a system, but the system doesn't guide your team to the right data, guide your team to the right decisions, then you're not that much better off than if you don't have a system at all. If you have spreadsheets and you say, well, what's the impact of these 6 changes? You're going to look at it and say, well, that's so hard to model all 6 scenarios. How would I do that? And you may not model all of those scenarios. And you're going to come into the meeting with a limited set of insights on what to do about it. But conversely, if you have a system that gives you all the data in the world and 150 reports, and you're trying to figure out what this is actually telling you, you're not that much better off. Ultimately, what you need is a solution that says, here's the things you should be looking at. Here's the options that are available. Here's the impact of those options. And the measure isn't the number of reports or the amount of data or what have you. The measure of, is the system supporting my business, is what's the speed to decision. How fast can I get from collecting the data to synchronizing the data to analyzing the data to making a decision? If I get to spend 90% of my time in this decision space and not in all of those precursor spaces, then I have, a lot more time to look at options, and make a better decision, and then I have time to execute that decision. Because again, you're going to be making that decision. There's some things you have to decide daily, weekly. It comes again and again. So you really want to be getting the insights and making decisions, and not constantly analyzing and collecting data.
Well, now I think I understand more about why less is more when it comes to reporting and data analytics. So, anything else around why is more not more?
Yeah, well, I think right. So more data and more reports just causes us to spend more time before the decision process in collecting and analyzing and processing this information. So if we can get to where we've got the insights in front of us that we can then go and make decisions around, we're going to be much better off. So more isn't necessarily more. Even though you need all of that data to generate the insights, you need a simple set of insights that all of your team can consume and make decisions.
Well, it's nice chatting with you again, Matt.
Yeah, it's great. So if you're watching this, like, subscribe, and put in comments so we can get better.
Thanks, everyone. We'll see you next time.